Imagine if everything powering modern life, your smartphone, your electric car, your laptop, and even your country's military, depended on 17 metals you've probably never heard of. Now imagine almost all of those metals are controlled by one country. That country is China. This is US versus China, the battle for rare earth power. Explained simply. Rare earth elements aren't actually rare. They're a group of 17 metallic elements found across the Earth's crust, scattered in low concentrations. We barely notice them in daily life, but they sit inside almost everything modern, from smartphones and electric vehicle motors to wind turbines, missiles, radar systems, night vision goggles, and fighter jets. If technology had a bloodstream, rare earths would be the blood. Of all the rare earths, one metal matters most: neodymium. It creates the strongest permanent magnets on Earth, small, powerful, and incredibly energy efficient. These magnets make electric motors spin, wind turbines generate power, and iPhones vibrate. Without neodymium, there is no Tesla, no iPhone, no F-35 fighter jet, and China controls nearly 90% of global processing. Now, let's look at how they gained that control in the first place. Back in the 1980s, the United States was the world's leading producer of rare earths. But China decided to play a different game, a long game. First, it heavily subsidized rare earth mining and processing. Then it flooded the market with cheap supply, pushing prices down so far that competitors in other countries couldn't survive. Mines in the US and Australia shut down because they simply couldn't compete on cost. Today, China controls around 60% of global rare earth mining, roughly 85 to 90% of refining and processing, and over 90% of rare earth magnet production. China doesn't just dig up the minerals, it controls almost everything that happens after they leave the ground. Most countries can mine rare earths, but refining them? Separating 17 nearly identical elements safely, cheaply, and at scale? That's a different game. China took on the environmental cost, the toxic waste, and the decades of infrastructure. Result? They now hold nearly 90% of global refining capacity, not because they had the resources, but because they had the strategy. And that brings us to why this dominance matters. This isn't just an economic advantage, it's geopolitical leverage. If China restricts or slows supply, entire industries feel it. Manufacturing of electric vehicles, semiconductors, clean energy technologies, and advanced weapons systems can all be disrupted. The US military alone needs hundreds of kilograms of rare earth materials for each F-35 fighter jet, in its sensors, magnets, guidance systems, and engines. Without rare earths, the world's most advanced fighter jet is no more useful than an expensive sculpture. The world didn't fully understand the risks until 2010. A Chinese fishing trawler collided with a Japanese Coast Guard vessel near disputed islands in the East China Sea. Tensions escalated quickly. Diplomatic relations between China and Japan froze. Around the same time, Japanese companies reported that rare earth shipments from China had suddenly dropped. China denied an official embargo, but trade data showed exports falling sharply. Prices for some rare earth elements surged by as much as 2,000%. Manufacturers panicked, governments scrambled, and for the first time, many countries realized just how dependent they had become on a single supplier. China didn't fire a shot, but it showed the world how powerful control over rare earths could be. Today, the United States is trying to rebuild the capabilities it allowed to fade. Mountain Pass, a major rare earth mine in California that once shut down, has reopened. New refining plants are being developed, and the Pentagon is directly funding research into alternative processing technologies. The US is also building strategic partnerships with countries like Australia, Canada, and Japan to diversify supply. But here's the difficult truth. Mining rare earths is the easy part. Refining and separating them, safely, efficiently, and at scale, is far harder. China spent more than 3 decades building that expertise, that infrastructure, and that integrated supply chain. Catching up is not something that happens in a few years. Rare earths themselves are cheap, but what they unlock in the U.S. economy is massive. The industries that depend on them, electric vehicles, smartphones, semiconductors, wind energy, medical technology, aerospace, and defense, are worth over $1.4 trillion every single year. So how does a rare earth disruption actually hit the United States? It starts with electric vehicles. Motors from Tesla, GM, Ford, and Rivian rely on neodymium magnets. A shortage means factories can't finish the motors, which means production lines freeze. If neodymium shipments stop for even 2 weeks, major EV factories in the US literally cannot build cars. Every modern wind turbine needs hundreds of kilograms of rare earth magnets. Companies like GE Renewable Energy, Siemens, and Vestas rely on China's processing. If those magnets run out, wind turbine construction halts. Renewable energy targets fall behind by years. Next, semiconductors. Rare earths are essential for polishing wafers, building lasers, and producing advanced chips. Companies like Intel, NVIDIA, AMD, and Texas Instruments would see production bottlenecks almost immediately. And if chip manufacturing slows, phones, laptops, AI hardware, and cloud servers all get more expensive. Your iPhone, your laptop, your VR headset all rely on rare earth magnets and materials. If shipments slow, iPhone production drops, laptops become delayed, prices rise, supply becomes unpredictable. Apple alone consumes thousands of tons of rare earth components each year. And the most sensitive industry of all, defense. A single F-35 fighter jet needs over 400 kilograms of rare earth materials. Guidance systems, radar, missiles, sonar, night vision, all depend on them. Companies like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and Boeing simply cannot build modern weapons without rare earths. If supplies collapse, the U.S. military's production slows within weeks, not months. One bottleneck creates a domino effect. Fewer EVs, slower transition to clean energy. Delayed chip production, shortages and higher costs. Slower wind turbine installations, weaker power grid. Defense delays, national security vulnerabilities. Reduced electronics output, shortages in everyday tech. A single disruption can freeze billions of dollars in production across multiple industries. So here is the reality for all of these. China doesn't even need to win a war. It only needs to slow the shipment of 17 metals. Which brings us to the future, where the real battle is unfolding. The next phase of this battle won't just be about who has ore in the ground. It will be about who controls the entire value chain, refining breakthroughs, large-scale rare earth recycling, advanced magnet manufacturing, and even the development of new materials that can reduce or replace rare earth dependence. Countries are racing to innovate, developing cleaner refining methods, building regional processing hubs, and exploring alternative technologies that could reduce China's strategic advantage. Because whoever controls the building blocks of modern technology controls a big piece of the future of technology itself. So here's the real question. In a world that quietly runs on rare earths, can the United States, or any country, afford to depend so heavily on China? Or is a gradual, costly, and complicated decoupling of supply chains now unavoidable? We've already seen what happens when rare earth shipments suddenly stop. In 2010, prices surged by 2,000%, and that was just a warning shot. So what if China did it again, but this time, intentionally? Electric vehicle production could slow to a crawl. Wind turbine construction could stall. Semiconductor factories, already under pressure, could be forced to halt output. Military supply chains would scramble for alternatives. Even companies outside the US would suffer. Because rare earths don't care about borders, they're everywhere. And China wouldn't need tanks, planes, or missiles. Just one export restriction, and the world would feel it. That's the silent power of rare earth dominance. And that's why this battle matters. If this breakdown helped you see the bigger picture behind the headlines, consider subscribing to Money Talks Economics. We've got many more stories coming about the forces quietly shaping your financial world. Till next time, money monsters.